One of the more popular topics today is what rights you have when you're asked for identification by a police officer. And the answer is going to depend on why they're asking for identification. If you've been arrested, you've got an obligation to provide your name, your date of birth, and where you live. And if you refuse to do so or don't do that, then you're going to face two charges. One for whatever you're arrested for, and the other for failure to identify. The obligation to provide this information makes sense. If you're arrested, you're going to be taken into custody and booked into jail. And so the police need to know who they're dealing with. And there's a practical reason too. Once you're booked, they're going to take your fingerprints and they're going to find out who you are anyway. The other situation where you may be asked for identification is if you've been detained or if you're a witness to a crime. You don't have any obligation to provide that information, but if you do provide it, you have an obligation to provide truthful and accurate information. And if you don't, that's also an offense. In that situation, you don't have the obligation to provide identification unless you're under arrest. But you do have the obligation to provide correct information. So if you provide information and it's false, then you can be charged with an offense. So you're perfectly within your rights to refuse, politely is best, to provide identification if you aren't actually under arrest. Traffic stops are treated differently, primarily because driving is considered a privilege and you give up certain rights in order to exercise that privilege. So if you're stopped for a traffic offense, you have an obligation to provide your license, your insurance, and your registration information. And if you fail to do so, that can be an offense. Now you might wonder about the passenger. Unless they're being arrested, they have no obligation to provide information. But again, the same rules apply. If they provide false information, then that is a crime. One final question people ask is, when can an officer ask for identification? And the simple answer is they can ask for identification anytime they come in contact with someone. But just because they ask for identification doesn't mean you always have to provide it. I hope you found this information helpful. If you found this too late and you've already been arrested for failure to identify, give us a call. We've handled hundreds of these cases over the years and are ready to help.